Well, hey everybody, how are you? Red Dirt Preacher here. Welcome back to the porch. I'm Laney, your layman friend. So I am massively late. For those of you that were my children, you'd learn this first. I tell everybody here at home that's in my arena, I'll be late, but by God, I'm going to show up. So as I get you guys to understand that, sorry, I did mention on the porch. If you missed it, then hey, no foul. But if you were looking for it, I said I'd be here at 1:30. Obviously, it's 7:30, so that's a lot later. I'm late for my own shit, right? Anyway, the message that I've been sitting on was spiritual meteorology. I put a video out last night that warned you of the warning, a warning for the warning. So I wanted to collect you before I collected you, so that way everybody knew how important the next video was, which is this one, and everybody knew what spiritual meteorology is and that I'm bringing it the next video. So with this being the next video, let's get started. I'm kind of dealing with a little bit of hernia, so I would appreciate your prayers. Talking and pushing, so I'm pushing and talking, and this hernia I have is quite painful. So anyway, pray for me on that and bear with me as I talk to you and like weird, it hurts. Bear with me. You like my shirt? Might I just do that? If I could stand up a little bit here. My shirt, it says Heavenly Medicated. Isn't that beautiful? That's beautiful. Rock on. We're doing it out here on the porch, So let's get started. I'm gonna loosen up a little bit. If you're waiting on me to like spin my top and go, well then I'm sorry. You're gonna have to hang out for a minute. I'm a human being. So let me drop in the comments. Let me know that you're here. Say howdy to my ass. It's kind of lonely over here on the porch. Say howdy to me. Say hi. Anyway, the spiritual message that I have for you didn't just come last night. I've actually been sitting on it for a couple of weeks. And as with everything that has big magnitude with Jesus, when he's letting me know these things, they kind of come in piece by piece. And I know, like now, like time to ride, time to go. So I know when the pieces are fully collected and it's time to give you the message. And I cannot shorten the story here because it is what it is. It is what it is. So, and there's newbies here on the porch, so I got to kind of catch them up in a living conversation. Right off the bat, right off the bat. You've been talking for like 3 minutes, girlfriend. Right off the bat, I'm going to talk about Pearl Harbor. I know, right? You guys gotta, I don't have to remember, but do trust where I get my messages, and this is why this message is long. Part of it is going to be me telling you what's coming. The other half of this message is going to be me, for the newbies and for those of you who forgot, I'm going to remind you verbally where God had started doing this last year with me. About every 3 or 4 months, he'd tell me where we're headed, and I'll be damned if we didn't head right into that. And after the second time, the third time, the fourth time last year, I started to put it together. Wow, you're actually telling us where we're going. Holy crap. So I nicknamed it Spiritual Meteorology and started putting it here on the porch. Tonight I honor the spiritual meteorologist in us all. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Pearl Harbor in a new way. Yeah, it's not cool to be a prophet and always be like, doom, gloom, because that's an old carpet we've all chewed on. I like to bring different messages, but sometimes I cannot negate what comes down the river. And what has come down the river in the last 2 or 3 weeks? Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor, Pearl Harbor. Prophetically, I'm going to look away because I'm going to sit with Jesus on this one. He's the one that brought it to me. So it's my job to tell you. It's my job to warn you. If you listen to me, if you take heed, prepare your fields for rain, that's up to you. And I'm not playing into all the bullshit that's going out in the world right now. I got horse blinders on. Jesus told me this. If it matches and resonates what's going out in the world, then great, good for us. We got a damn nice leader in Jesus and a great navigator. Let's ride. So there's that. He's telling me we were going to go through another Pearl Harbor. I said, well, what? Believe me, I reacted to these messages too. It's why it took me a minute to bring it to you. Another Pearl Harbor, to which I asked Jesus, what are you talking about? And I didn't get like a full sentence like we talk to each other. I got little catchphrases. Catchphrases like, you know how one day you're having a picnic, one day you're at a ball game, one day you're picking your kids up from school, one day's all the same. It was like that back then, right prior to Pearl Harbor. One day was just the same. We're listening to the radio, we're driving our cars. And then there becomes an event. Like in the past, it was Pearl Harbor. There becomes an event that changes the world. That changes everything. Now your ball game, playing the radio and having barbecues is not important anymore. And I think that's what he was trying to get me to understand. that when we have our Pearl Harbor, that's why, and release your mind like, oh God, we're going to get bombed. So he's telling me this for these reasons. He's saying parallel, just like back then. What you have coming in the storm that's facing you is something like that. Every day is just the same, la 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 la, now it's not. And he was allowing me to know the event that causes that to happen is much like Pearl Harbor. What is much like Pearl Harbor? Jesus for 500. Jesus said it's also like Pearl Harbor because you didn't see it coming. You're not going to see this coming. There's no defenses for this. We have defenses now for, if we went back in 1945, we could have stopped it from happening. But in 1945, we didn't have defenses for it. So we were caught off guard and we were caught out of the blue. And he's saying again, I'm using Pearl Harbor as an example. Same thing's going to happen to you guys now. You cannot defend. You don't have the defenses to defend for what's coming. It's going to happen. It's going to happen out of the blue. Black Tuesday, Black Monday. Uh-oh, big day. So he wanted me to warn you that this is coming. Disciples to disciples to disciples. If we were all disciples back then, one disciple could have told the other disciples and they wouldn't have questioned it because they knew who Jesus is. And they know the company they keep, men among men here. So one disciple to another, I hope that you don't question where I'm getting this. I'm getting this from the same guy we all serve. And so Pearl Harbor, because we're not going to see it coming. We are defenseless to it. It's going to come out of the blue. It's going to change everything about our lives. As Pearl Harbor was a catalyst back then into a greater war. Without Jesus here, I can use my cognitive mind and say, wow, if we're going to have a big event like that, I'm sure it's going to lead into world distress. What I'm saying is not new. You already know in your own house by looking out into the world, and you've seen this creeping up on us in the last 20 months. Sure. That doesn't make what I'm saying, and it's like, oh, that's not new, Lainey. Yeah, but we knew we were coming here. We're here. Okay? So Jesus was saying, I warned them. And when Jesus actually was telling me this 2 to 3 weeks ago, he told it to me like an elephant in little bitty bites over the course of weeks. And it ended up getting all these little catchphrases and keywords and understandings. In the middle of this, he took me right into Psalms 90 something or another. And I don't read the Bible, kids, and you know that. But God walked me right into Psalms 90. I saw it in my head, Psalms 90 something. I get into my Bible and I pull open right into the top of little bitty words, Moses' prayer. So I start reading it. I felt pulled to read that. I actually read that, and that's the verses I find, you are my refuge. I was like, really? Because that's a famous one. That's where it is right there, huh? Psalm 90-something. I'll be darned. But, okay, go back. I'm reading this, and I'm going to read it to you later on tonight, I promise. God is our refuge and our strength and our, help, saving us from trouble, right? Also, in this prayer of Moses, he also talked about how Moses' tent was covered and he need not worry. And this is also the Psalms where you find the arrows fly up during the day. About 3 weeks ago, right here on the porch, I put just a picture, because I use it as a bookmark. I put a picture up of Israel's missiles. That's it. And I put something about, wow, I didn't know they were called arrows. Israel has missiles. They're called arrows. I'll get into this later. That's why the message is going to be big. Because when Jesus first brought this to me, he showed me arrows. And it evolved to understanding that arrows are missiles. Arrows, they got flames. They go over the sky. That's a lot like missiles nowadays. Not flaming arrows. Okay? But flaming arrows and arrows in the sky was in the Bible. If you look up arrows today in Wikipedia, it says a missile or projectile that's lit on fire goes boom. Okay, great. That's a missile. I looked up missile arrow. You know what came up? Israel. Big old picture of a huge missile. Because they call them literally arrows. The arrow program, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Huh? I learned about this late April. It wasn't weeks later, because I had not brought the porch the message. I was sitting on it. I put up a picture to bookmark and at least, validate that, I saw this back then. I didn't say anything to you guys. Do you know what happened next? Israel started throwing arrows. Okay? They just got done with a ceasefire. You think this is a coincidence? I didn't, and I was like, oh my God, you just told me about arrows and, what's going on here? And God keeps telling me, go tell him about Pearl Harbor, go tell him about Pearl Harbor. So, last night and other nights, and I've gathered enough to let you know I walked this out with him. It's a cyber Pearl Harbor. We're going to have a cyber Pearl Harbor. We're not going to know who to blame it on. We're not going to know where it came from. Just like in 1945, if you were the guy that was, in Hawaii and you're looking up, where are these coming from? Why? And Jesus was telling me, we too are going to face this. We're going to have a cyber Pearl Harbor. And since I've already been sitting on this message for like 3 to 4 weeks, and he runs, the last time Jesus was telling me stuff, it was about maybe 2 to 6 months in advance of what was coming down the line. Just based on prior, working with Jesus the last year, I noticed that every 3 to 4, maybe 5 months. So what he's saying, we're going to walk head into, I guarantee you that. How long? If he's telling me, then I would say, based on my experience with Jesus, then he's telling me, then we've got 2 to 6 months. Prepare your fields. I don't have a huge microphone. I'm not out in the world right now. They're not like, oh, Lainey said it's in the papers. I don't get to help a lot of people. I got this little bitty voice on Facebook, and I got a little bitty porch. But I tell you what, I'm going to tell who's listening. We literally do have a cyber Pearl Harbor coming for us. We cannot defend it. We're not going to see it coming. And more than likely, it'll pull down our infrastructure. Last year, and some other stuff that I don't want to get into it all right now. You just got to trust me. Actually, I've gotten into it in the past as it came up on the porch. We've already been there in videos prior. But I was told way back then, about 8 months ago, that we would go backwards. Go back, way back. Like Great Depression back. Like burn tires to stay warm, go backwards. Like have root cellars. That was something I heard that was a key word. Root cellars. We're going to go backwards. And I sat there 8 months ago like, why the hell are we going to have root cellars? What, we got radiation fallout? Like, why do we have to have root cellars? You know why we're going to have root cellars? Because there's not going to be any electricity. Therefore, no refrigerator. If you know what a root cellar is, people in the Great Depression and your great-great-grandma used them to keep the food cool. That's how they canned their stuff. We're going to go back to that. And you're like, wow, that's mega. Think about it. You're raising your kids, you're going to karate practice, you're going to piano practice, you're taking them to the library. If you don't have kids, you're going to Sonic, you're doing stuff. Mark my words, because God's saying it, there's going to be a day where that stops, and that day's coming very soon. We have that coming. We have a Pearl Harbor coming. And when that happens, it's literally an act of war, and we've been debilitated as a nation. And that leaves us weak. And I'm afraid at that point in time, you have yourself a world stage that we've all read about. So I'm not a big fan of being a prophet and go, oh no, we got to tell them a doom and gloom. It's not a fun day for me, kids. It's still the message, and I can't change the message. So, spiritual meteorology. What is the storm that's coming? A Pearl Harbor event. One that's going to knock us on our asses. And to be prepared for that is to do the best you can. You can't hoard all the food in the world. You can't, blah, blah, blah. You can do all you can. Do you know the Great Depression lasts for 10 years, from 29 to 39? You can't hoard food for 10 years. There's going to be a point where we're all just going to have to work together on this. So when this comes to play, there's a lot of people who are going to lose their lives in just plain ass stupidity. And selfishness. And this is going to last a long time. And we're going to have to do what God's been wanting us to do, which is to unite. When is our skin color and our fatness and skinniness and our Republican and Democrat actually not going to matter anymore? When is that going to happen? Oh, the day we're all trying to survive as one. The day that I have to share my flour with your bread and your bread has to share your bread with my tires. That day. The Great Depression. That day. When we all begin to interweave again and work in conscious collective love. Unity. And it's too damn bad that it's going to take some bullshit like this to make us get unionized inside of each other again. So, alchemy it may be. Aggressively accept the truth. This is where we're going. And the fighting for me, mine, and yours is what's probably going to do people in. And for those who share the we complex, it's we that are going to make it out of this together. And really, it's really sad too, because the smarts about canning vegetables and knowing how to survive died almost two generations ago. We're iPod stupid now. So this is going to be really tough for a quick gratification, AI, kind of extremely dumbed down common core world that we are. This is what we're going to face is going to be astronomically hard for us. So there's nothing we can do about it. Prepare your own house how you see fit. Pray about the message that I just brought to you. Pray about it in your own house. Pray about it in your own chest. And that's that. It seems like the message would be longer than that because there's all these, I want to tell you like all the ways I got to this knowledge. That's the beautiful show that I can show you. Like, oh, here's how I got to it with Jesus. Here's how we walked this out in the last 2 to 3 weeks. But I believe at this point, after what we're going on, about a year and a half of hanging out together on the porch, I believe at this time, and you wouldn't be sitting here if you didn't trust me at some sort. And if you don't trust me, you got to trust God. So you wouldn't be sitting on the porch if you didn't trust me. So I think I can negate having to tell you the story about how this happened or why, how I got all this information. Just trust that I got it. This is the information that I got. We got a hell of a hard time coming. We got a Pearl Harbor coming. Protect yourselves. Get some food, get some water, dig a root cellar. You'll thank me later. Amen. All right. So it's serious. Take it seriously. I don't know what else to do. I can't blare horns and, excuse me. People got laughed at this, in the past. What do? Go get a soapbox and stand on the street corner? And there's been so many prophets that have come before me that prophesy so much shit that just doesn't happen and never, ever, ever comes true. And they make real prophets have a minimal voice. And so this is a real prophet moment where I'm telling you this is going to happen. This is going to happen, and God has a great track record with us here on the porch because fall of 2019, he started warning me into Christmas time, and as we topped the calendar year into 2020, it was literally right around Christmas, he started telling me about poppy fields. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Poppy fields? Poppy fields? I looked it up. Poppy fields are poppy medicine, the drug, right? I actually got a sermon about poppy and flower and how it grows and found ourselves lying right there in the poppy flower. So last year, was it 2019, cusp of 2020, God came to me and told me about the poppy flower. And when you harvest the drug, the medicine from the poppy flower, you actually have to make it cry. You have to come by and cut it like so many times. You slice the stalk a little, and it makes like a teardrop. Look it up. It's awesome, holy homework. But you actually have to make the poppy cry. And the last day that you harvest, and you do this like many times a day throughout many days. And the last day that you're going to harvest the poppy, you cut it again, and then you actually tap it on top of the flower as you're adding insult to injury. And those last tears really make the poppy flower cry, and that's where you get a high concentration of the medicine, of the pain antidote. And so when I asked Jesus, like, why are you teaching me with a parable of a poppy flower? Are we going to cry? We're going to cry, aren't we? We're going to go into a crying season. And that's what the prophetic does. I was sitting here in my room and I was like, we're going to go through a crying season? We're going to cry? Adding insult to injury? Boom. What the hell was COVID? Now, see, God told me the bone. He said, you're going to cry and it's going to be added insult to injury. I didn't know what he's talking about. I don't know what earthquake, celebrity. I don't know. As a prophet, I don't know. I know the bone. And when we walked right into it a mere months later, because it was January, February, March, COVID, we were crying. I noticed that everybody in the world was crying. And to add insult to injury, we couldn't be with our loved ones. They were crying harder. Whoa. You said we were going to be in a crying season. We in a crying season. We in COVID season. That's a crying season. We cried. For those that lost loved ones, regardless of how you guys are like, don't be rude. It's a government. Regardless, people are gone. I got people in my own family that I went to funerals for. They're gone for a reason. Somebody did something because there's a lot of good people that ain't here no more. We cried. Regardless, we cried. So poppy medicine and poppy fields, he was right. And then I ran off to Indiana to go hide from COVID. And while chilling, watching my garden grow in mid-June, end of May 2020, God starts telling me about the threshing floor, about how he's come to separate seed from chaff, and that he's going to do this great divide. I put it on my profile. I put it all over the porch, literally, and all I said was great divide, dividing us, oil and water. This I've known since I woke up in him 7 years ago. He's going to divide us, oil and water. Well, now I'm sitting on a porch in Indiana, and he's really saying now's the dividing time. Oil, water, seed to chaff, it's all the same, darling. Going through a great divide. It wasn't, I think, 3 weeks later, and we walked ourselves right into BLM. We divided racially again and blamed it on each other. And then we started wearing masks, and then we started dividing ourselves again. And then our Republican, Democrat parties, we divided again. And then the spiritual water divides us from religion. And then Jesus kept telling me, there's going to be so many cracks and fissures during this great divide. It's going to be a great split. And it's not a split of your opinion, my opinion, I wear a mask, you're black, I'm white, I'm red, you're yellow. It's going to be a split. Our spiritual true colors are going to come out. And my God, they did in 2020. And they still are. We all have massive true colors, and some of them are nasty, and they're hiding in our politicians and in our celebrities, and we're dumping them out of the world. And for those that are full of the Spirit, we're raising them up. We're actually doing it the right way now, not backwards. So he told me about that. He was right, and we walked right into it. So he has this great way of telling me what we're walking into and being absolutely correct about it. He then told me about debriding, a debriding season. He made me give a sermon about deer and how they lose the velvet on their antlers. I'm not a hunter. I don't shoot deer. I don't handle guns. I shoot burglars, not deer. So I had no idea. I was not raised around hunters in my family either, and God ripped out every damn masculine in my life 7 years ago. So it's not like I have any vernacular in my mouth to even know what the hell I'm talking about, but I'm talking about hunting. It's because Jesus taught me. And I brought you guys a sermon about debridement, about peeling how deer actually have that velvet come off of their antlers. And it shows the bone underneath, right? And that makes them able to defend, mate, and, go on with their families. It prolongs their families if they debride. And if you've ever seen a deer debriding that velvet, it's the grossest thing in the world. Look it up on Google. It's shocking. If I was a squirrel, I'd call Animal 911. Have you seen that deer? His shit is hanging from his antlers. He looks like he's going to die. Either that or he just murdered somebody. I wouldn't have understood that the deer is debriding. So God means to debride us too. He's going to debride us right now. His bride's married to the world, married to religion, married to a lot of nasty, narcissistic, fake love and masquerade ball bullshit. And he's coming along to make sure that he debrides us from the world and he marries us himself. We are his girl and we need to be with the right man. Jesus is the right man. So he's coming along to get his girl, Jenny. So I know that he means a lot when he says debriding here. Not only with your skin, but he's going to debride his bride from the world and make his bride in union with him, as it should have been. So when he talked about debriding season, we actually walked into that as a people. We walked into debriding season. We walked right into losing our jobs. A lot of us lost our marriages. We lost friendships because of all the cracks and fissures. How many of y'all lose friendships because of the mask? How many of y'all lost family because of political lines? How many of y'all lost frequency fallout? You've lost some things. Debriding. Are you coming off some skin? We're coming off some skin here. We're going to show the bone. Show the bone. So we've come into these parts and pieces as God has been telling me with spiritual weather. We're coming into this. We're walking into this. So now he's sitting here telling me not only did we walk into a crying season, we walked into a dividing season. We walked into a debridement season. We're going to be walking into a Pearl Harbor now, and it has its alchemy. Don't be afraid. Read Moses' prayer. It talks about how God is our refuge, how our tents are protected, and basically, y'all going to sit there and watch what I do as arrows fly across the sky. So don't think that these arrows are just, arrows anymore. These arrows are missiles. Arrows are, look it up in a dictionary. Arrows is a missile. It's a missile or a projectile. Well, I live in the modern day, biblical teachers, so I'm going to go ahead and understand that that's a missile. It's the same as being an arrow because Israel has a missile named arrow. So when the arrow flieth during the day, I will not be afraid. God took me to Moses' prayer right there in my bed 2 weeks ago, telling me not to be worried about my tent. Well, then I'm going to tell my church the same thing. Don't be worried about your tent. When the arrows come flying during the day, the missiles are going to fly. We're going to have ourselves a little Pearl Harbor here. All right, hold tight to faith as we sling through grace here. All right, God knows your name and he's got your house. You know what I mean? So definitely read through Psalms 90. Remember who we are in God, and these days were talked about. These days were talked about. So as much as that is what it is what it is. So happy day, everyone. Happy canning. Good luck canning. So look, we just have to, it's going to be tough, and I think you kind of knew this down in your house. You knew that something's coming, something's going to happen, so I could feel it in my bones. Well, good. I'm glad you can feel it in your bones. I can feel it in my Jesus bones, too, and he told me it's a cyber Pearl Harbor. It's going to knock down our infrastructure. We ain't going to see this coming. We got no defenses for it. But know that it's coming, and you can prepare yourself. Amen? And, blood to blood brothers, a Christian, blood to blood brothers. We got Jesus in common here, so he's telling us, his disciples, to take heed to that, Just like the Great Flood. We ain't stopping the flood from happening, but we can build a boat, right? So we're not going to stop what's coming, but we can prepare, all right? So that's the message. Anyway, I'm going to be busy with you tonight as long as my stomach stays put together. Literally, I'm feeling like Humpty Dumpty over here. Like somebody needs to sew me up, put me back together. But anyway, I will talk to you guys soon. I got a lot of messages and some weird shit happened today, and I want to share it because God made more medicine out of it. So much love. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking it serious, because if you like messages like oud oil, which I gave back in the day, you know, God gave it through me, oud oil and red backs, these are really good pieces of manna and sermons that he put in my mouth. They're on YouTube, and I'm really proud of them. And so if I'm proud of them, then I got to be proud of this message too. If I like the cute messages that he gives, then I've got to like the hard messages he gives, and all of them are just as revering as the next. So there it is, crowd. Mwah. All right, until next time, stay kind, stay out of your mind.